The transfer portal on fire. A year after we thought the spring transfer portal would be ablaze, tragically so, it actually is. It's very visible. The flames can be seen from miles. Quarterbacks are going in here. Now, no singular team has been ripped apart by this thing yet, although Cal would beg to differ. But we got some quarterbacks that I think are interesting. So Gio Lopez, kid from South Alabama. Not a lot to say there. It looks overwhelmingly like he's going to North Carolina. Like they're working that out. And the reason I mention that is because he's a pretty good player, and it's going to be Belichick's first quarterback. So that's of interest on its own. But then also you saw early Nico smoke with North Carolina. I'm not quite sure how serious that ever was, but moot point now. They've moved on. Gio Lopez probably goes to North Carolina. Steve Angeli is a name I'm interested in. He went in the portal today. That was Notre Dame's backup last year, battling C.J. Carr for the starting job. C.J. Carr's won that job. So Angeli's in the portal. Now, I believe he can play winning football for someone. And I don't know who's going to be involved here. I think that'll evolve over the next 24 hours. You'll have a much clearer picture there. But Angeli's, I'm just telling you, in this post-Stetson Bennett world of ours where anything is possible at quarterback in major college football, it would not surprise me if Steve Angeli was the quarterback of a playoff team this upcoming year, and I don't even know where he's going. But that would not surprise me. It's such an inexact science, even at this level, at the NFL level. Projecting quarterback plays an inexact science. So you got that, but the one that interests me the most is Joey Aguilar, who right now for this very second, this very moment in time, is the quarterback at UCLA and just transferred there. So if Nico Iamaleava lands there, what happens? And oh, by the way, that kid's got his own NIL deal, so really, what happens? Well, I would overwhelmingly lean towards the idea that he's going to transfer out of there if Nico to UCLA is finalized, at which point you've got another quarterback in the portal that no one expected to be there because he had already been there, and then he's back in the portal. And, you know, the other thing about this, I was at Arizona State the other day. Arizona State's really good to us. So I'm sitting in some team meetings the other day. I'm sitting in the quarterback meeting. And I'm thinking to myself, listening to Marcus Arroyo go over stuff for 45 minutes. I'm thinking to myself, somewhere out there, in fact, in many rooms out there, there are meetings going on like this today. And there are quarterbacks in that room who are going through the effort that you have to go through in a typical college football, spring practice season, and they know they're about to hit the exit door and take none of this information with them. They're going to go get plugged into a new system, learn new terminology. They're going to be thrown to new receivers. I remember thinking to myself, when you report it, the general public just sees it, oh, it's a headline, and all right, this quarterback's going to go there, and he'll be playing there now, but that's it. And then it's in your mind and out of your mind in 10 seconds. The amount of work that goes into being a quarterback at the college football level is insane. And so I want to reiterate, this stuff is not haphazardly done. It is not a video game world. It is not as simple as pressing a button and, all right, take the things he was going to do here, and now he'll just do them there. It's just not the way it works. It boggles my mind how freely some guys transfer. Some of them put a lot of thought into it. Others, I just don't think they do, because there are hundreds and hundreds of kids in the portal. Not everyone has thought this stuff through. But to go through an entire spring and then just say, all right, I'm gone. Crazy to me. Micah Hudson is an interesting name, too. He's a wide receiver. He was at Texas Tech. He portaled to A&M. He's already back in the portal. A lot of extenuating circumstances here, classroom-wise, just probably some non-football stuff. And so waiting to see where he goes. He's the number one ranked wide receiver in the portal right now. Talent is not the question, so probably a lot of other extracurricular stuff going on around him. Let me cut in really quick and ask, look, prayer hands, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you think you're subscribed, check and make sure. Over 50% of you aren't. It's free, it doesn't sign you up for anything, and it helps us keep the show free, College Football year-round, the way God intended it. All right, back to the clip. Fran Brown, I mentioned him earlier. So he's the head coach at Syracuse. He was at Georgia 2 years ago. He goes to Syracuse last year, takes over, big-time rising star in the head coaching ranks. And if you don't believe me, let's say you live in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, okay? You probably don't know a lot about Fran Brown. You really probably don't know a lot about Trevor Pena, who is a wide receiver of his at Syracuse. So if you live in Cape Girardeau, good people there. If you live there and you just heard me say, Fran Brown's a rising star in the head coaching profession, you probably think, well, why would he say that? Like, what about Fran Brown is special? Well, let me have Director Colin in just a second tee up a piece of sound, because I know our people in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. In fact, most corners of the country will love what you're about to hear. So he has a player, Trevor Pena, wide receiver, comes to him and not only wants more money than Syracuse is willing to pay him, he also wants input on things that a player probably has very little to no business having input on. Now, some head coaches out there walk on eggshells and they have no clue how to deal with this. Let me show you how Fran Brown at Syracuse dealt with it.
We paid him enough. He was going to get paid more. It was different things that would go there, but there were some numbers that were asked to me that I didn't feel I would be able to do and move on. And of course, I treat him right. I took care of him, done everything that was needed. And our differences were Trevor's not a coach, he's a player. So he was worrying about things that players don't worry about. Players work. You know, Trevor was worrying about his future. I want to make sure I go to the league. I got to make sure I have another year like I had last year. How you know Ricky gonna be good? He's super talented, but like, would he be good next year and not this year? When they start trying to do your job and think too much and all, man, you got to go.
We don't have a job opening at Pate State right now, but if and when we do, Fran Brown's on the short list. I told you in Cape Girardeau, I told you like Fran Brown. I don't think Cape Girardeau is the only place Fran Brown's approval rating just went up. So that part there is not touched on as much yet. And to be honest with you, that soundbite circulated yesterday, and I saw quotations. I did not hear the full thing until later that night. So my takeaway from that was way, way different than most people. Most people said, wow, that kid wanted like $2 million and Fran Brown wouldn't give it to him. Good for him. Man, kids want more money than you're willing to pay them all the time. That's not a new concept. And that's touched on a lot. What's not touched on, but what is also a chronic issue, is what Fran Brown also talked about there. You've got kids, or more specifically, and probably even worse, their representation, that has the audacity to walk into a head coach's office or a GM's office and they want to dictate terms about how you're running your program. You saw some of this reportedly with Nico, but I'm not going to castigate him because this happens every single day. You got a quarterback or you got a wide receiver, they want to know, who else are you recruiting at this position? Who are you putting around me? Are we going to make tweaks to the system? And Fran Brown sat there and said, you're a player. You're not a coach. If I am going to pay you what you're asking for, it's not to worry about my job. It's because you're doing your job at a high enough level. And your job is to produce for us at the wide receiver position and block when we're asking you to, when you're not catching the football, and be a model citizen inside the locker room. Your job is not to worry about the scheme we're running or who else we're recruiting or what we're doing with personnel. So in this good for fill in the blank world of ours that we've entered into, good for Fran Brown, because that's a conversation that many, many personnel offices, front offices, head coaches, up to and including, have had to have. And you got to be so delicate with it because a lot of times you're talking to a guy you're trying to keep. Well, Fran Brown said, yeah, we're probably not going to keep him. So at this point, I'll just air this out. And that can be a soundbite that other people can use. So good for Fran Brown. And you know what? We'll use it here. Georgia has a need. Fran Brown was there a couple of years ago, so we'll naturally transition to Georgia. We went down to Athens a few weeks ago, came back. I said, I think Georgia needs help at edge. They do need help at edge. Maybe it's out there. Elo Madozi? Yeah, I was worried about the first name pronunciation, not the last. He's an edge player at Army, 6'3", 245. So he's got 2 years of eligibility left. 34 tackle guy last year, 6.5 sacks. There are multiple edge guys available. Now, again, like I said at the beginning, just because there's a 6'4", 330-pound tackle in there doesn't mean he's capable of playing for a program like Georgia. Just because there's a lot of good height, weight numbers at the edge position in the portal doesn't mean they're all capable of playing to the Georgia standard. I think he is, and I would say Georgia leads for him. I'm not, exactly ready to write any of that in pen or Sharpie, maybe, but that guy feels like he'd make it at Georgia to me. I don't know. That guy feels like he'd make it at Georgia. And I wouldn't be surprised if Georgia made a couple of moves at the edge position. Also, speaking of offensive tackle, he's an edge, but speaking of offensive tackle, Joe Cotton, anyone from South Dakota? If you're a tackle, if you can walk and chew gum at the same time, you will have a ton of offers. So Joe Cotton, not only can he walk, chew gum at the same time, he can actually play football fairly well. Wisconsin in the mix. A&M in the mix. Looks like Michigan's in the mix. Cincinnati, we have reason to believe, is in the mix. 6'7", 315. Look, candidly, there's some folks out there who I thought needed tackle help, whose names I was surprised were not in the mix here, but maybe they will be in the mix and we just don't know about it yet. So keep an eye on him, because that could be a difference-making player. And also, a lot of you asked about Kennedy Urlacher. So Kennedy Urlacher is a safety at Notre Dame. He's entered the portal. The reason I wasn't going to spend a lot of time on it is because I think he's going to USC, and I think that's pretty close to being done. Not that I was out there yesterday or anything, but I kind of was. So I'd be very surprised if Kennedy Urlacher did not land at USC. And the follow-up, anytime you land guys out of the portal, is, are they immediately, plug-and-play type players? But there's also a world where you land a guy and he's a 20-snap per game type player, 40-snap per game type player. Even if you get one of those, that could be the difference in 2 games. That could be the outcome of 2 games shifting in the upcoming season, especially for Southern Cal, because they play exclusively one-possession games, or they did last year. So right now, transfer portal rankings. Texas Tech number 1, LSU 2, and it's Ole Miss 3, Oregon 4, Miami 5. There's a lot of movement still to come. So don't get married to those numbers yet. A lot of movement still to come.